We are at the heart of Poland's game development industry in Project Red's CD Projekt headquarters here in Warsaw. Behind me there is a replica of a gamer setup from 20-30 years ago. Well, nostalgia is a powerful emotion, and with me talking about how they bringing good old games back are Marcin and Maciej. Welcome.
Welcome.
So I still get shivers down my spine when I hear in English that famous line from Baldur's Gate, "Gather your party before venturing forth." Do you remember that line?
Yes, of course. So, in Polish it was "Przed wyruszeniem w drogę należy zebrać drużynę" by Piotr Frączewski.
A famous Polish classical
Exactly,
movie actor.
exactly. And Baldur's Gate in general was a huge milestone in this CD Projekt Red history, and one of the first games that was released on GOG when the platform started, because that was, if you might remember, that was the first biggest localization in Polish that was involving a lot of famous actors at the time. So
could you just explain, maybe Maciej, could you explain to our viewers what is a localization in computer games?
Sure. That means that all of the scripts, voiceovers, the quest lines, the text within the game is translated to a local language. Sometimes it's only the text is translated, but sometimes when companies are getting serious about localizing a game, they localize all of the lines that are coming from the characters within the game, and that was the case with Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. So why was Baldur's Gate such a major milestone for CD Projekt? Well, yeah, now Red.
Yeah, CD Projekt at the time was a distributor, and they bet a lot into making that localization because it wasn't cheap. It was the first localization of that magnitude in Poland. And this is one of, I think, the main reasons why this game was so famous here. Another reason was, it's an obvious one, the game was simply amazing. So everyone loved it, and on top of that we had an amazing Polish localization. And from that localization, the famous quote, "Przed wyruszeniem w drogę należy zebrać drużynę," was really imprinted into the gamers from that time. So I'm sure that everyone from my generation remembers that.
There is a commercial trivia to that as well, because when Baldur's Gate was released, I don't remember how much it cost exactly, probably around 100 zloty, and that came with the Polish localization, all of the manuals, a very good quality package of a game plus materials plus localization, yes. And compared to bootleg copies that were sold, and the price was per CD, so it was a price per CD. So if there were 2, 3, or 4 CDs, you were paying per CD. So when Baldur's Gate was released through the official distribution, it was kind of on the same level as the bootleg copies that were much more they were inferior in terms of quality and attention to detail and the localization and so on. So and that was a revolution, right? Because people saw that they can actually pay kind of the same amount of money and they can get a product that is highly superior because it's localized for a particular market. And that was one of the pivotal moments, I think, for CD Projekt.
It was a pivotal moment for CD Projekt, but it was also an iconic moment in pop culture history. So with that, why do you think game development and gaming is looked down on, is not really seen as a part of, big culture with a capital C? Why would that be?
I think one thing is that it's a new medium, it's a new media, interactive media, so just there's a lower, smaller amount of people that were exposed to that media. That's why it's looked down upon. But I also think it's because it takes a lot of time and effort to change people's behaviors, what they were kind of used to, right? So I imagine it will take a very long time for the Nobel Prize committee to say that, okay, maybe it's time for giving a Nobel Prize for a game, right?
Not just to Olga Tokarczuk, but also to CD Projekt Red.
There will be a game that based on Olga Tokarczuk's book, so maybe that will be the first one.
Okay.
And I would say that this is actually quite serious, because it's really one of those mediums that is really crossing the boundaries between cultures. You see amazing games that are from Japan, that are from even India, that are doing very well in the West, and vice versa. So, and what actually we see when we are traveling and meeting people and talking to gamers, talking to the developers, that we played the same games back in the day, right? We have the same memories, and that is true all over the world. So I would say that next to movies, and even in some cases more than movies, this is one of those mediums that is really bringing the whole world together, if I may say so. So yes, every old game deserves to be preserved, because there are people who played those games that feel a very strong connection with them. So yeah, it's true for all of the games.
Yeah, could you explain to our viewers what was the main difficulty in preserving these games? Because we can access old movies, black and white movies. We can, as you said, look at old paintings in a museum. So why is it so hard to access these games?
Games are in general much more complicated to maintain, in my opinion, than any other form of art. Two main areas here are the legal and licensing reasons, and the other area is the technical reasons. Well, movies, for example, do not have the technical aspect to it, because it's very relatively simple. You can copy a music, use different codecs, and so on and so forth. So with games, it's much more difficult, because you have all of that business, legal areas, licensing, and so on and so forth. And on top of all of that, you have a very complicated technical layer. Because games that were made 30 years ago will not work on modern systems.
Because obviously, I remember my first game, opening the box and having the floppy disks. I'm sure our younger viewers won't be aware of how difficult that process was.
Yeah. No one right now, even if you have the old copy for 30 years ago on your floppy disk, you do not have our.
Have you got a floppy disk to show us?
There are some here laying around. That's one is from Lemmings too, right? And this floppy disk, it contains some data. You can also use it to watch the solar eclipse, as we used to do when I was a kid. But games are an interactive entertainment. That means that the player is in control of what is happening, right? And that means that there are additional translating layers between the player, me, and the hardware, and also the output of the hardware, meaning what I see, what I hear. So the graphic engine, the audio engine, and so on. So there is quite a lot of things happening in the background, and as we all know, this landscape of hardware and software was it is the most probably innovative element of the industry, right? It changes every day. It changes every week.
Even right now, if I can add, right now I would say that even hardly anyone has a CD drive, not to mention a floppy disk drive.
I don't.
And it's because the technology is progressing, right? It's really bad a lot of times in maintaining the backwards compatibility, so to speak, for different reasons. So what we are making sure is that all of those games that were released back in the days that use the systems that are no longer used by anything are translated to this new technology, and they continue to work. And that is not only that what we are doing now, but more importantly, we are also committing to doing that in the future for all of the games at GOG. And that is actually I believe, one of the main values that we bring as a platform. So
are you actually telling gamers that they will be able to play Old Mist or Baldur's Gate or Quake forever?
As long as GOG exists.
That's our aim. That's our purpose, and that's the reason why we exist. So the answer is hopefully yes, forever.
So you did explain the technical aspects, which are very difficult, the legal aspects, but what about the physical aspects? I remember opening a box with a Myst game, the really thick manual, the actual tactile feeling of that. Can you recreate that emotion somehow?
We are trying. Actually, it's interesting that you brought it up, because it's very close. Those feelings that you've described, they're very close to the inception of GOG, why GOG was founded, and that's this story of Michał Paczyński visiting, I think, US, New York in particular, and he saw that, like, in more of a modern game, so prior to when GOG was launched, those old games, those like Myst boxes or Baldur's Gate boxes, they were just like stuffed on the shelves, right? And there was no real exposition of those games. They were not cherished, they were not like celebrated, and so on. And I think there was this feeling, this magical feeling of opening the box and going through the history of the game, like reading through the characters, about the world, and so on, so on. That's what can immerse us even like deeper into the story, deeper into the game. That's why we strive to like collect and preserve not only the games, but also all of the materials that were added to those games, that were oftentimes are very hard to find because they were only distributed on a local market, through a local distributor, and so on.
And those thick manuals that you just mentioned, like they were all digitalized, and they are added to the versions of the games that we have on GOG. So they are there. You can download them, you can view them, and there was a lot of hours spent into scanning those.
So, yeah, I can imagine. Given the fact that your industry is the revenue of your gaming industry is now equal to the revenue of music and the film industry combined for the last year, why do you think people don't see computer games as part of, you know, the real culture?
That's a very interesting question.
Well, obviously for gamers like us, we get it, but could you explain to our viewers who just don't?
In my opinion, that view is changing, right? It's not in the mainstream yet, I think, but it's getting there. You can see it, for example, through the success of the movies or TV series that are based on games, right? I think in the recent years there was a more clearer connection being made there, and through that connection, a lot of the people from you know, the audience that didn't know or was not really involved in the games learn about that. Hey, there is this form of art, I would say, that I am totally not aware of, or I was ignorant of, and they are basically starting exploring this whole avenue that they didn't know was so huge. It's still true that it's not where the movies are, but I strongly believe that decade at most, and it will be more recognizable even than the movies.
I would provide an alternative perspective on that. I think we cherish what we've been exposed to, and games as like game industry, I think it's booming right now, right? People, there are like billions of gamers out there on the world, like either mobile gamers or like console gamers and PC gamers. And I think once those people, those generations get mature, they would like to look back at what they were exposed to in their childhood, right? That's the core of the nostalgia, which is a reminiscence of a past happiness or like past joy. So we've been exposed to music and films for much longer, or sculptures or literature much longer than we were exposed to games. So I think it will, the time will come, it will be very soon, that we'll start treating games as art, and as a culture piece.
To sum it up, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I think it's happening as we speak.
Yeah. So finally, for this year, what is the game that is on your wish list, the one that you want to preserve the most? What's the next big thing for GOG?
The next big thing for GOG?
What we want, not what we can promise, right? But what we want.
Well, maybe something that you can promise.
I can say, well, personally, what I would love to see on GOG is the game called Freelancer. That's the game I'm personally most excited about, and that is something that we've been trying to get to GOG for a long time. So hopefully there will be an opportunity for us to have this game on GOG.
On GOG. And for you, Maciej, what's the game you can promise us in 2025?
I can promise you. I cannot promise. I cannot promise, but I would say that maybe it's possible. Who knows, that we'll release some of the Command and Conquer games that were trying to get for quite a while, maybe.
The next big release and the game that our community is very much looking forward to, although they do not know yet that it is going to be released, is Dino Crisis. So that is a big game from Capcom that was kind of released alongside of Resident Evil, another famous Capcom series. When we released Resident Evil on GOG, of course, everyone was happy. There were a lot of comments. Yeah, thank you for bringing this back. But every second comment was, okay, now Dino Crisis.
Okay.
When? And it was almost a half a year ago when we released the last Resident Evil game. So we worked with Capcom on bringing those other two Dino Crisis titles to GOG.
Okay, Maciej, and something further along the pipeline.
Maybe, I hope that we'll be able also to release some of the Command and Conquer games this year, which I'm personally waiting for, especially for Red Alert 2, Yuri's Revenge. Yeah, I would like to see that on GOG.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that was Marcin and Maciej from GOG here in Warsaw, and I'm Karolina Shapland. You are watching Pulse of Culture.